very long time when you're sitting here silently.
It does. I hope everybody's on their tippy toes. This is a great topic today.
It certainly is. Oh my goodness. It's actually, from my vantage point, one of the most important topics to
Uh,
discuss.
Mine too.
We're at the top of the hour. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to Management Q's webinar series on the art of effective management. Today's session is especially exciting as we share a snapshot of what it means to be effective in the function of staffing. This session will prove to be yet another enlightening and impactful journey into effective management practices. I'm Marisa Stoltzfus, your HROD executive expert, bringing you more than 25 years of experience, and I have the privilege of hosting this webinar series. Before we dive into the world of management, let's pause for just a moment to discuss why this series is so important. Our business landscape is evolving as we speak. Effective management isn't just a skill, it's a strategic imperative. Whether you're leading a small team or an entire organization, the ability to manage resources, people, and the processes of your business is the cornerstone of success. You have to know how to juggle and manage multiple priorities. The Art of Effective Management series is designed to share bits of knowledge, some tips, and a few tools that will help you navigate the complexities of management, enhance your team's performance, and drive organizational success. So while this series is not a comprehensive training program, we will explore various functions of management, a few effective communication strategies, and some key decision-making points to inspire you and help you nurture a positive workplace culture. For today, our topic is staffing as a function of management. We'll explore the various responsibilities associated with staffing and provide you a few key takeaways to apply right away. We value your insights and questions, so feel free to participate actively in the chat box. Now, here's Dr. Myra Austin, CEO and founder of Management Q's, to walk us through today's management topic. Dr.
Thank
Myra?
you. Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you're just as excited as I am about this staffing topic. Like any effective manager should, I'm going to start with compliance. So, this Management Cues webinar series is intended for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in reaching a conclusion over any employment area of law. So what that means is we're going to give you tips, we're going to give you advice, we're going to go through experiences that we've had. And like Marisa said, it's meant to be short and sweet, snack size bites of key insights that you can apply right away. But by no means is it a rule of thumb or actual legal advice for you to proceed in your own environment. Okay, so we always advise, if should a situation arise similar to what we discuss or talk about, please escalate that to the appropriate legal counsel or HR leader in your environment. All right, let's get into it. So like Marisa said, we both have over 2 decades of experience. My experience really falls on operations and in the management space, but I have learned, at least in my career, that knowing how to partner with HR leaders is everything. It's the winning strategy. And so Marisa is an expert in HR and organizational development. So she's reached executive levels, consults at executive levels as well. So she is an amazing resource for you to ask questions in our webinars, for you to challenge even, where we're really good with the challenging. It's about safety with our managers out there and giving you an opportunity to explore these things with a little bit more depth than what I've at least seen in the workplace and around training with managers. So that's a little bit about us. As somebody who is an enthusiast for managers, I am your champion, and I am so excited to walk you through some of the insights that I've learned that have made me personally very successful. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so today's agenda. So we're going to do an overview of the topic. We're going to break it down quickly and efficiently. Like we mentioned, our webinars are short and sweet. It's really about giving you what you need in a 30-minute space. And then we're going to talk about takeaways and resources, and we'll open it up to some Q&A. So please make absolute use of that space if you have any questions around anything that we're exploring today. Okay, and then we'll close it out. Okay, here we go. I've been so excited for this one. So, staffing as a function of management. So, in our very first session of this webinar series, we went through all of the functions that managers should realize to be successful. One of those functions is this staffing function. To me, staffing and planning as the functions of management are some of the most complex, but the most significant in being successful as a manager. The staffing function of management pertains to recruitment, selection, training, development, appraisal, and promotion of employees. So it's critical for you to know your role as a manager in these different areas. Not being involved in these areas is a key to failure in the workplace. It is the duty of every manager to be involved in the successful execution of the staffing function. So, as managers, you play a very critical and relevant role in how well these things are executed. Efficient planning and execution of the staffing function rests upon managers at all levels of management. The reason why I feel that particular piece of information is so important is because, in my experience, as I've gone in to correct or structure operational areas in different organizations, I commonly run into managers not realizing that they're responsible for a role in these areas. It's very common. And they automatically, if they have HR presence in their environment, assume that it's HR's responsibility to structure and execute on these areas. So that's part of what we'll discuss today and make the differentiation. The staffing function includes areas like progressive discipline, performance management, retention, and incentivization. That was hard to get out. Incentives, people, that's what we're talking about. The staffing function is realized when managers know how to partner with their HR leader. So, as an HR leader and executive on the call, Marisa, this slide is just so important, in my opinion. From your lens, what has your experience been when it comes to these areas?
Well, when it comes to these areas, a lot is placed on the HR department to make these things happen, right? And I've shared this many times with a lot of different people. The role of HR is to facilitate, to make easy the work that has to be done. Where executive leaders are championing things and employees are performing, middle management is driving the work. You're driving it up, you're driving it down, and you play a critical, pivotal role in an organization, and you're pulled in a lot of different directions. But your responsibility around bringing people in, developing them, making sure that they're rewarded accordingly is absolutely critical to creating a strong workplace environment where people want to come to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that driver piece, the managers being in the driving seat, that is so critical to your role as managers because you're the driver. And nobody does more of the handling in an employee's experience than the manager. So that kind of misconception in the workplace causes a lot of conflict and a lot of lack of execution in the appropriate space. Okay, let's keep exploring. So the people, all managers are responsible for a degree of human resource management in their roles. So while managers are not all human resource managers, the awareness around human resources, the role that they're supposed to play, and the manager's role and what they're supposed to do, that's the key. That's the key to success and managing this function effectively. People are an organization's most important resource because people either create or undermine an organization's reputation for quality on both products and service. They are the vehicle through which managers achieve their goal. And there's nobody else driving. It's you, it's the managers. So these concepts, they're deep. They're not as superficial as maybe we've seen out there. An organization must respond to change effectively in order to remain competitive. So, managing change in the workforce is tough. If you are not strong with the staffing function of management, it's going to be even harder, maybe even impossible to get people aligned and moving in the right direction. The right team can carry an organization through a period of change and ensure future success. So, the way managers make sure that they achieve what they're out to achieve in order to reach those larger organizational goals is largely through recognition of this staffing function. So when you have managers that feel like it's 100% human resource that should be operating in some of these areas, or they just weren't aware that this was a responsibility of their role, that's where you start to see employee claims, retention issues, high turnaround, people not being developed in the environment. So if any of these challenges or barriers sound familiar to you, you might want to reevaluate whether the staffing function is where you need to develop. So let's keep going here. Okay, so 4 ways that managers can partner with HR. So again, this is a strategic way of looking at HR in your role as a manager. It's not just getting along in the work environment. There's another layer of insight and strategy to it. It's more about you securing your success as a manager by recognizing that that partnership is important and valuable. So you do this by identifying shared goals and metrics between you and HR. So if you're in an organization, and I'm going to pitch it right over to you, Marisa, in like 2 seconds. If you're in an organization, chances are you should all be working through one large organizational goal. Okay. Not knowing how to partner with the key roles in the organization is the first stepping stone towards failure, because you're not getting the most out of the relationship or the resource. And so if you're all working towards one given purpose, there should be metrics that connect to one another. There should be performance expectations that speak and partner with one another. You want to minimize areas of conflict. If as a manager, you find yourself not feeling supported by HR, or if you feel like you don't quite understand the role of HR, or you've never heard of HR, there's everything. Everybody has a starting point. You want to look at those areas and you want to diffuse them, you want to address them, and you want to clarify them, because you can't partner with somebody that you don't understand. And if you don't understand your own role, then you don't know how you're supposed to contribute. You want to create alignment between what you need from HR and what they need from you. So that's a really important question to ask. How can I partner with you? Just, I'm a very direct leader, very direct person. So for me, it's natural to just say the question, but everybody has a different communication style and different way of saying it. But ask the question, or ask questions leading up to understanding what people need from you in your role, and tell them what you need from them. Okay. Keep up with compliance, legal, and regulatory requirements. So I will say this, what has made me very successful in the operations space has been my respect and continuous development in areas of HR and in the employment legal environment. It's unique to me in the operations space. I haven't come across many operators or managers that are as well versed as I am in California law or in employment law. But that's unique to my journey. But my recommendation here for managers is know that it's relevant, know that it impacts you, know that there's personal liability involved, and that a lack of awareness isn't going to protect you from the things that could harm the organization or you personally. So very important key points here. Marisa, you're the HR leader that not only I typically partner with the past few years, but you partner with managers like all of us on the call. What would you say from your perspective?
So from my perspective, the compliance piece is a given. If HR isn't doing that, then you've got a more serious issue in HR than you might imagine. The partnership is what's so critical, the alignment, right? What is it that I'm responsible to do as the HR leader as opposed to you, the manager? HR leaders are expected to know the business, to know how the business runs, to hire people who fit in the business, to make sure job descriptions are appropriate for the business. But we do all of that in partnership with managers, because we can't know everything, but we know how the processes work. And so we have to partner with managers in order to make sure that everything that we do to support the business is solid. So, those first 3 bullet items, so on point, managing conflict, helping leaders do what they need to do in terms of meeting metrics, etc. And the compliance piece, like I said, if you're not doing it, if HR is falling short there, you've got bigger issues.
Yeah, no, great point. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective. So managers on the call, recognizing whether HR is playing the role that they're supposed to play, that gives you a competitive advantage as a manager because you're able to recognize it and speak to changes that need to happen in your environment in order for success to happen. Not being able to recognize it makes you part of the problem. And that's the important part. Oh, we have some chatter. Let's see what we've got going on. What are your tips for working on international teams and different legal frameworks? I work between US and Brazil. Oh, what a loaded question. So I worked with international markets as well. You can't take place of an attorney, so don't put that expectation on yourselves. I think that part of recognizing how to navigate is to be well versed. So if you have specific areas in the international marketplaces, depending on your product and service, and depending on the number of employees that you have, you want to start with the fundamentals. Typically, there are requirements based on number of employees. Start there. So, and what I mean by that is start by identifying at what number does it create legal risk for the employee and to what degree? It's an easy question to start with. It'll give you a framework for what you're responsible for and what you're not. Another good way to address that is understanding jurisdiction. So what is a US employer's jurisdiction in another international marketplace is a good way to start addressing that and getting familiar with it. Marisa, I don't know if you have any international specific experience that you'd like to add.
Yeah, my international experience is not, it doesn't have the depth that Myra's have, but I would tell you that the best way to manage all the international differences is to keep track and partner very closely with your legal counsel, who will work with you to make sure that you're doing what you need to do and it's appropriate.
Okay, awesome. So I hope we answered your question. If not, feel free to email us and we'll look into it and give you something a little bit more concise. But it starts with asking the right questions. If you have no experience in those areas, and don't think that as managers you have the burden that an attorney would. You don't. It just helps you navigate and mitigate risk better when you start to have those types of thoughts and questions around the environment that you're responsible for. Great question to get started with. All right, let's keep going. If you have any questions, please continue to ask. We love the questions. So 3 fundamental principles. All managers are human resource managers. So it's important to understand that because then you'll get it in your head that they're not the enemy. And sometimes it can feel that way. And we'll talk about that too. Or sometimes we can feel like they don't understand the things we encounter as managers because they're not directly managing our people. And that's important to kind of lay out. No, they're not managing the way that we're managing. That's not their role. But they do mitigate risk. They do support very specific areas in the organization related to people. And so we want to, as managers, be the ones who initiate and change that type of culture or change that type of thinking. Because when things go south, and I use this in one of my consultation calls this week, when things go south, the people who end up with the bulk of that problem is HR. And a lot of the times it's because managers didn't know how to mitigate or handle the situation. And so that's how you partner is you make it easier for them. They make it easier for you because when HR leaders are only focused on problems, they also can't support the other people area as well. So there's an exchange there that if we're all competent, we're all much happier, we're all performing, we're all successful. Employees are much more important assets than buildings or equipment. So as managers, and as somebody who comes from an operational type of tactical management style, sometimes we prioritize the wrong things because we don't have an understanding of the staffing function. So people should always come first. Operating areas in the environment aren't going to sue you. You might lose money, but you're not going to lose the business over it necessarily. So it's just weighing these things in a more objective way. And sometimes we're very invested and we want to, reach our goals and we want to be successful. And that's all wonderful. But people have to come first, and handling those issues have to be done expeditiously and correctly. So managers must match needs of the organization and the needs of employees. So as managers, we can't just be focused on doing. We can't just be focused on these external part of our operating areas. We have got to understand the importance of handling issues up front and doing it in the right way. Okay, so efficient employee management. So as we're looking at these things, what does efficiency in handling look like? So the staffing function of management is what enables fair, dynamic, and efficient handling of employees and the issues that they experience. So the employee experience is largely due to the manager's interaction with them and handling of their experience. The staffing functions are continuous. It never ends. This is an ongoing thing. It plays a role in every day and every team member interaction, which is why it is one of the most critical functions. So in everything we do, if we're not thinking of the staffing function, we're missing an opportunity. The staffing as a process is not just about finding a person for the job. It's not just placing. It's a lot more than that. It's about finding the right person and putting them in the right job or role. Staffing involves identifying competent and skilled people who will be able to fit directly into the position and perform the functions it entails in an efficient and successful manner. So putting the right person in the right role, if you're not contributing to the hiring process, if you're not managing performance, if you're not providing feedback on the job description, those are the points of failure for a manager. And at least in my practice, I see that happening over and over again, where we have team members who are hired for a specific role. The manager is going to lead and manage that person, but never had any input in the entire process of finding the right person, putting them in the right role. So Marisa, this is a big example of where managers and HR leaders closely partner. What would you add to what you've seen?
One phrase I'm going to add: hire slowly, fire swiftly. Right? If you want to manage staffing, you have to take time to hire the right people, as Dr. Myra has mentioned. And I know managers are always, the HR is always under pressure to hire, we need them yesterday, hire them as soon as you can. But the fact of the matter is you need to take time to make sure that you're hiring the right people. And then when they're not working out, because we've all had that experience, right? We've all made hiring errors. Performance manage immediately so that you can take care of your team.
Yeah, and that's the objective. That's the manager's role. Okay. So employee development. So staffing is, like we said, not just about finding the right person and placing them in an adequate role. Staffing is also helping employees through the process of training and development to adapt to the changing needs and requirements of the role or position they've been placed in. So you don't just get to let them figure it out. You have to take a look at whether they have skills gaps, what their areas of opportunities are. This is all part of the staffing function that managers delve into. All employees require development to remain relevant and to maintain consistent performance outcomes. So as we do training with different clients of different size, we get common questions, and a common question is, what do you do with an employee that doesn't want to get promoted, doesn't want to grow, doesn't want to be have a different role? And my response to that is this: you can't remain relevant without development or training. So that person can lose their job because they failed to grow and develop, whether they want to move forward or not. And that is a consequence. That is a choice. And so sometimes the opportunity there with the employee from a staffing function and from a manager standpoint is explaining to them, you have to remain relevant. Hence, we have to continue to learn and grow. You don't have to take on more responsibility or a different role if you don't want to, but you do have to remain relevant to stay in your role as marketplaces change. Okay, so we have another one. Okay.
Yeah, I can take
Oh,
I
go
can take
ahead.
this
Great.
one. Yep.
Yeah,
I've
take
seen
it.
job applicants advised to apply for jobs even if they do not fit the description 100%. That is correct. I'm seeing job applications more and more say, if you don't have all the requirements, that's okay. Apply for the job. You're not going to have all the requirements. I mean, unless you've been in the job market forever, you may be missing one or two of the key requirements of the job. Apply for it anyway, right? And think about skills in terms of transferable. What's transferable, and present yourself in that way. A common comment women receive is that men tend to apply for jobs even if they don't 100% fit the job description. So women should do this too. I would encourage you to do that. If there's a job that you're interested in, sell yourself. How are the skills that you have going to contribute to the role that you're interested in, and go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Marisa. And connecting it back to, the right person in the right role, that phrase is not referring to you checking every box on the job description. That phrase means the manager making sure the skill set at the table is what is needed to execute and develop in order to make that role successful. So I wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, and let's not forget the element of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But like when you're building your team, you need to look at all of those different aspects, because really, truly, when people bring different skills to the table, they make a team more powerful.
Yeah, and Marisa went all the way HR on me. If you guys caught that, she went right into DEI. So yes, those are the things. What is going to make your team balanced? What is going to make the team more successful? It's not always experience. Experience is really valuable. It's just not everything. And the same with education, the same with industry specific knowledge. That is all valuable. It's just not all required. And in my experience, I hire for skill set, for character, and for other things that I know if I pour into that person as a manager, I know they're going to make it. Right. So those are the types of things. Great questions, you guys. Thank you for the questions.
Yeah, we're running out of time, Dr. Myra.
Say that again.
We're running out of time, Dr.
I know,
Myra.
it's because it's a good session. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll make it quick. All right. All employees require development to remain relevant. We talked about that. Employee development involves the process of improving the skills in employees and allowing them to develop overall ability to master relevant areas in the organization. So that goes back to the point I was trying to make. Thus, staffing involves preparing and being ready for the future, as well as achieving current goals. Okay, let me keep going because the clock is going. So there is a performance management cycle that managers should be aware of. And if you never knew this, this is a great nugget for you today. There is a cycle as managers that we're supposed to follow to keep things on track as part of the staffing function. And that's these 4 areas: planning, monitoring, reviewing, and rewarding. If a manager is doing these 4 things, and they could be to varying degrees, it doesn't have to be super sophisticated or fancy if you don't have a budget, or if your organization's evolving, or is startup, whatever it is. But know that these 4 areas exist, and that if you're not doing anything in all 4 areas, that's your area of opportunity and your competitive advantage as a manager. Okay, progressive discipline. You have got to execute when needed. You have got to act when somebody is not falling into place or not keeping up with the team. You just cannot avoid it. It creates so much more problem and maintenance. And that's when you start to lose HR as a partner, because you're not doing your part to mitigate the problem. The staffing function of management includes ensuring that team members are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Staffing requires managers to implement progressive discipline. Progressive discipline allows managers to recognize and address problematic employee behavior before it becomes worse. So you want to partner with HR, handle it before it becomes a claim, before the company is getting sued, before your whole team is frustrated and burnt out. Employees are more productive when managers take charge and enforce through the function of staffing. This part is hard. I know we have a lot of people pleasers and a lot of great, beautiful, nice people out there. That is not what you got hired for in the capacity of a manager. Okay. Okay. So these are progressive discipline steps. If you're not familiar, we'll do future trainings that you can join. But these are the progressive discipline steps that you should follow when somebody is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Step 1 is counseling. You talk about it. Okay. And you just say, hey, heads up. And it's a little informal. You're just giving them a heads up. Then you have a more formal verbal warning where you're saying, I need you to stop, and you're very clear, right? Okay, that didn't work. Move on. Written warning. Here it is. Final warning. Some companies implement a second written warning. I don't. As of practice, I'm that kind of a leader, but you can and still be okay. And then you escalate. An escalation could be termination, suspension without pay, suspension, demotion. It could be different things. You have options there, which we go over in our separate progressive discipline trainings. But it's important for you as managers. If you're handling the staffing function, you have got to follow this plan. Okay, incentive versus reward, and we're at 10:30. So if anybody needs to jump off, please do. We want to be respectful of your time. If you can stay on, bear with us. A recording will be sent and the deck as well. Okay, so if you need to go, we totally get it. And thank you for joining. All right, so incentive versus reward. Incentives. So incentives are proactive. They are laid out ahead of time as a motivating factor. Incentives are used typically when there is an intended outcome to meet or when team members are underperforming. So that's really important because you want to know whether you're incentivizing or rewarding somebody as a manager. This tells you what the difference is. Incentives are presented as a potential gain or benefit intended to encourage or motivate team members to perform, while a reward is retroactive. Okay, rewards are the result of achieving required performance that is being tracked or monitored. So if you're not tracking as a manager and you're not monitoring, you should not be rewarding because you're not doing it right. You have to be able to quantify your decision making. Otherwise, you're going to get employee claims around discrimination, employee claims around preferential treatment, or other claims, right? But those are very popular around reward. Rewards are given to employees whose performance is meeting or exceeding expectations. So you want to be clear on that distinction so that if you run into employees that say to you, well, why are they getting it? Right? That's going to be a question you get right off the bat. Why are they getting that reward? You want to be able to say they met this performance parameter and you didn't. It could be just as objective as that versus having it undefined. And then you're going to run into issues because you're going to have to justify it. Rewards are typically used as a part of recognition for achieving a specific goal. So very important key differences here. Marisa, you've handled so many claims, and let me tell you, Marisa is the firefighter on our executive teams. When we go in and consult in organizations, she deals with the aftermath of poor handling. What would you say with regard to incentive versus reward?
Well, I think you've covered it very well here. Document, document, document. That's what I would say.
Yes.
Records are up to date so that you know the difference, you have the difference, and you can speak to your employees with confidence.
Excellent. Okay, so here it is. We've come to the end. So these are the key takeaways for today's brief session. The staffing function of management pertains to recruitment, selection, training, development, appraisal, and promotion of employees. People, our employees, are the most important asset of any organization. The staffing function of management is what enables fair, dynamic, and efficient handling of employees and their employment-related issues. There is a 4-step performance management cycle that managers should follow, and that is planning, monitoring, reviewing, and rewarding. Progressive discipline ensures that managers are monitoring and making sure that the team members are doing what they are supposed to be doing. There are 5 common steps to progressive discipline. That's counseling, verbal warning, written warning, second written warning, and escalation. If you follow those things, you're HR compliant. You are partnering with your HR leader or department as best as you can. Okay? All right, let's open it up to any Q&A. If there's any other questions before I hand it over to Marisa to close out. And we got to thank you so much. That was great. You're welcome, Yara and Ciro. We appreciate you joining. Any other questions before we close this out? Give you a few seconds and then I'll pass it over to you, Marisa.
You got it.
Okay. Okay, I think that was it for today. So go ahead, take it away.
Okay, well, as with all of our webinar sessions. And as we conclude today, I encourage you to take insights you've gained and apply them in your professional journey. The recording, as Myra mentioned, the recording of this webinar, the deck, and maybe a surprise or two, will be emailed to all participants for future reference. You can find additional resources, including management planners and other tools to support your ongoing development at www.managementcues.org. Connect with us again next week as we continue our series on the art of effective management on Wednesday, February 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can join us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay up to date on future events, submit other questions, and to share your feedback. Thank you for being part of the art of effective management, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.